Oh, God, no. I'll wrap up the end of the meeting.
Today is National Custodian Appreciation Day.
Is it? Oh, well, we celebrated a whole month early, or a week early.
Well, I wonder what everybody else is doing. Sure, everybody's doing a lot of things.
Sure, nobody cares. Okay, let me find.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you see me? Oh, hello.
Now with their crazy hair.
Now, I got to be honest with you. I could not see um, myself on the other thing. So when you were saying I was making about the key,
You didn't know that your camera was on?
well, no, I knew it was on, but it was way down at the bottom. All right, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Trying to make sure that you've got all your permissions. Oop, I don't know what I did there.
Well, all right, we have about 1 more minute and we'll get started. I feel like that's been the longest minute of my life. I keep looking at my clock and it's up 10 o'clock. So we're going to get started on time as we always try to. And just a few, well, just for those of you who may be joining us for the first time, my name is Ginny Gleason and Javon Blum is also co-facilitating with us today. And you are a part of the parent leadership team meeting, just in case you're wondering, where am I and what am I doing? Because some of you who are brand new, I know, are just kind of learning about this process. So we're excited for you to be here today. I'm wondering if I could ask you, how many of you are brand new? Raise your hand or go in the chat box to say that this is the first year you've been a parent leader. Okay, I see a couple hands going up. Great. Great. Welcome. 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 And we encourage your feedback. I know it's hard in this forum when we have so many people on the call, but you know I'm sending you at least an email about a week, and we'd love to get your feedback. So please don't hesitate to get back in touch with us. And we're still admitting a lot of people, so we just want to give everybody a chance to join the meeting.
Jenny, your camera's off?
Hi, I'm back.
Don't think you're getting away with that.
No. No, we are very focused on this meeting. So we appreciate everyone who has their cameras on today. I know we can't see everybody who's on the call. How many of you were with us last week?
So last week?
Or 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. It felt like last week. Great. Well, that's a good sign that you've returned. So we do appreciate that. So, all right. So what we're going to do, oh, good. Our presenters are coming into the house. We're very excited about that. I think it's time, Javon, for you to begin sharing your screen. And then we'll hope that I can continue admitting people.
Wish us luck.
Yes. Because we're still finding our way. We're starting to figure it out, but we're finding our way. And there we go. Very good.
Only imagine.
All right. So let's just look at our agenda for today. Welcome. We're so thankful that you're here. And we're going to start off by talking about the English Language Arts, which we call ELA, textbook adoption. Then we're going to move into raising stress-resilient children. That's a term that is sort of new to me, and I like it. And then we're going to talk about the
I don't care about that.
the BPS mental health plan. Don't forget to mute everybody. And then if we have time, we'll have a little Q&A, and then we're going to have the superintendent's update. So we're very excited to have our superintendent on the call today as well. So without further ado, we are going to introduce you to Janet Stevenson, and she will share English Language Arts textbook adoption.
Good morning, parents and community members. The voice you're hearing is me, Janet Stevenson. I'm in front of that BPS sign. And I'm here to talk to you today about the books that get put in front of students in Brevard Public Schools. Have you ever wondered how materials get picked to be in your kid's classroom? Why that textbook? Why those online digital resources? Who picked them? Are they of quality? Do they represent all cultures? Are they biased? Is the content challenging? Will it prepare the kids for college and careers? Well, that's what Brevard Public Schools is in the process of completing. We're in the process of a textbook adoption. This year, in this fall season, we are going to be looking at instructional materials that publishers submit based on Florida's best standards. BEST stands, in education, we love an acronym, as you probably know, and BEST standard stands for Benchmarks for Excellent Student Thinking. So publishers from throughout the United States submit materials to us that represent curriculum they have designed aligned to these Florida standards. And parents and community members have an opportunity to have a voice in these instructional material selection. And in just a minute, I'm going to show you another slide, not quite yet, that shows you an opportunity to have a little bit of input or a lot of input. But I just want to tell you that the tools we give teachers matter. The digital materials and the instructional materials we put in front of teachers and students matter. Never more than ever have we realized that than during COVID, when we realized the deficiencies we had in some of our digital materials when forced to go to e-learning. So we do know the reality of that, and we have put in some of our criteria what we want in digital materials for our students and our teachers, knowing that e-learning might be the way of the future as a result of this COVID crisis. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. And what I was going to share with you is these are some opportunities. Jenny's going to send out Mrs. Gleason is going to send out these links to you. But you have anywhere from a 5-minute time commitment opportunity to a 24-hour time commitment opportunity. So depending on what your schedule allows for, but here's some opportunities I wanted to tell you about. We want to find out what you think is important in an English language arts curriculum. So we have what's called a pre-survey, and that's your opportunity to just complete, it's like 4 questions where you just tell us your opinion of what you think is important for students to have access to in an English language arts curriculum. And that's anywhere from kindergarten to advanced placement English lit. You can tell us your opinion in a 5-minute survey. And a lot of those questions are open-ended. We just want to hear your opinion. And where will that go? Will we really listen to you? Well, we will tabulate that information, and we are going to share it with our review committee and in an informational way, and use that to inform the publishers we select in choosing. The second option you have is once the publishers submit to us, everything they submit has to be in a digital format. That's a state statute. They have to submit everything digitally. And so you're allowed, parents and community members would have access to give input on digital links. You could go in and look at publishers, look at any grade level you want digitally, and provide feedback to us. And the committee that we've assembled will use your feedback in a final recommendation process. So that would be later in the year, November 16th through 30th, and that would take about 15 to 30 minutes. And that's really dependent on your time. It could take longer if you wanted it to, but you would have we would put out there the digital links to the publishers and the grade level curriculum and the standards. So you could go in, look at the standards, look at what the publishers have provided, what they say is aligned to those standards. You could see what the pictures in the books look like. You could see what the lessons look like. You could see what the students would see, what the student copies would look like, and give your opinion to us and let us know if you think it is of quality, if you think it's biased, that type of thing. And the final opportunity, which would take a lot of time, we say it's going to take about 24 hours of time, and it's going to be a process of about 4 days, possibly 5 days time. So it's a big time commitment, and some Saturdays time. You see, that's what we're asking of our teachers and our community members and our families and parents who would want to be involved in this. But it's an intense process where we examine all publishers' materials in order to make a final recommendation to the school board. And we're looking to make that final recommendation to the school board in January. And just so you know, these materials would be being used, our timeline is they would be being used in our public schools next school year. So that would be in 21-22. These materials would be being used in schools. So that would be a 24-hour commitment that we would need you to be available all those times. And I'm not going to lie to you, it is work, but it is important work, and it's fun work working with other teachers. We guide you. I'd be interested to know if that one of our questions on like a little mini application is, have you ever done this work before? We definitely are looking for about 5 to 6 parents. What we're looking for is diverse backgrounds. We're looking for people who may want to do anything from kindergarten to middle school to high school. And we're really just looking for people who fit our needs to serve at different grade levels. So I can't tell you exactly like that I need 24 people. It's going to depend on who submits for which grade levels and what we need that way. But you see this little picture up in the top left-hand corner by the word parent. That's what the flyer is going to look like that Jenny sends you. That flyer is the flyer for the big commitment. That's the flyer for the 24-hour commitment. The little tiny 5-minute survey, Jenny's going to send you in a link in an email, I believe. Mrs. Gleason will send that to you in 5 minutes. And the short survey will be a link in a email, but this is what the flyer looks like for the big time commitment. If you would like to be interested in that. And Jenny can push out my email, Janet Stevenson. So if you want to ask me any questions about the process before you complete the survey, some of your names I feel like I know from serving on school advisory councils because I'm in charge of that too. So you might recognize my name from school advisory councils. I see some of you that I recognize from that. So anyway, I'm happy to answer questions now, or you can email me later, whatever you need to do. But I'm glad to have this opportunity to talk to you about the importance of instructional materials in our schools.
And I would love for anyone who has a question to put it in the chat box. And if any question that you ask is always good for the whole group. So that would be wonderful if you do have a question. And let's just face it, I want to ask you, Janet. So in the past, I feel like we have. Uh-oh, I think
I'm
someone's
sorry.
not muted.
Sorry.
That's
I thought
okay.
I was muted.
That's okay.
I just
That's real
saw
life.
one question, Jenny. It asked if they would meet virtually or in person. I can answer that one. So we have the option for both. We are going to meet in person, but if people don't feel comfortable meeting in person, we are allowing people to meet virtually. We have the ability to meet virtually as well as in person. So it's a hybrid. It's going to be a hybrid model. Bernard, I saw had a question, but I didn't see what it said.
We have a couple more questions here. Will for the committee, is our time required all of the days listed?
Correct. Yes. hmm
And how many people are you looking for?
We are looking for about 3 to 4 parents for elementary and 3 to 4 parents for middle school and high school. But it really is going to depend on people. We're open to taking more parents. So, but I've been, I'm going to say 5 or 6 total. So it's not a lot, but here's what we know. We know we're doing a big ask by asking for this big time commitment, especially during the holidays. That's why we're asking as many parent and community members as possible. And let me just point out, the reason why I say community members is sometimes we have grandparents out there and people who aren't legal guardians, but who want to be actively involved in what happens in our schools. So we are sure to include community members, retired teachers, people who are stakeholders in our community, who are, who benefit from our public school system. So we want to be sure to include them as well.
So I think you sort of answered this last question. Is this open to only parent leaders, or is this something we could
Oh,
share with our school families?
yeah, definitely. And you can share it with school families, and it's going to be pushed out. We're sending it out in what's known in the school system as the leadership team packet for principals to share with school families as well. And it's going to be shared through our social media department to be pushed out on social media, so it can, it's going to be shared far and wide. So we're casting a wide net because it is such a big ask for people to give up so much time. But historically, we've done this big ask for other adoptions, and we do get the parent and community engagement that we need. And the truth is, it always is a benefit to Brevard Public Schools to get family and community engagement in the beginning, as opposed to after adopted, when then parents and community members see something that they don't like in their child's textbook and want to complain. We'd much rather have people see it now in this process than later after it's been adopted. So the more we can get people involved now on the front end at looking at things and playing a role in their children's educational future and the instructional materials that get put in front of them in their kids' schooling, we feel the better off we'll be by front loading it now rather than waiting until 18 months later and them seeing a textbook come home that they wish they'd had a voice in seeing.
All right. Well, thank you, Janet Stevenson. We
Yeah.
appreciate your presentation today, and I really encourage you to talk to your friends and talk to your fellow parents at your schools and encourage their participation as well. Your voice does matter. It really does. And I think you would learn a lot from this experience as well. So we look forward to you getting a big, long list of people, Ms. Stevenson.
Yes, thank you, everybody. I see so many familiar faces. Email me if you have questions.
We'll do that. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So we're moving on in our agenda today to someone that has been a partner in Brevard Public Schools for a long time. At one point, she was a school counselor, and now she has her own private practice with counseling in Brevard. And she has provided us, she's been our keynote speaker for parenting workshops. She's presented before to our parent leadership team meeting. And Javon and I have made a commitment we are committed to making sure that we provide some emotional, mental wellness information at just about every single meeting that we have. So today we are just so completely honored to turn it over to Jackie Flynn, who will be presenting to you on raising stress resilient children. And I'll
Thank
just
you
take-
so much, Jenny. I certainly appreciate being a part of this. During this presentation, if anyone has any questions, just feel free to pop them in the chat. Sometimes I may put more generalized answers in there, and it's helpful not to ask anything that could be sensitive to your child or anything that could potentially put them in a space of sharing personal information. So if you do have any questions that I don't answer here or can't get to, feel free to reach out to me via email, and we'll coordinate a time to chat. So Jenny, is it coming up, or would you rather me just talk?
I think we're working on bringing it up. I see a square box. Does anybody else see a square box?
Yeah, it's great. I could share my screen, or I could just say verbally. Either way, it works. You know, I don't really need the actual slides.
Here we go. Do you see
there
it
is.
now?
Yep, there it
Okay,
is.
great.
Okay, so here's just a few pictures. I just wanted to introduce myself so you knew who was talking. I am a private practitioner here in Brevard County in Cocoa Village. I have my private practice where I work with people of all ages, but I really love the part of my job where I get to work with children and families. So Jenny, you could change the slide. If I don't know who's changing the slides, there we go. So that's a little bit of what my work looks like. I'm definitely working online, just as many of you are, working in a way that really keeps us to as much normalcy as possible. So I see clients online. We do play therapy. We do the EMDR therapy. I'm a child trauma therapist. We can do many things online. So that's what it looks like in the upper left-hand corner there. That's a picture of sand tray therapy. So that's what it looks like in the office, where we use metaphorical representations for people to really process through tough stuff that surpasses the limitation of words. What we know about kids is like their brains are still developing until they're 24 or 26. So a lot of times they don't know what to say or how to say it, and really words can't touch some things. It's more of a felt sense in the body. So that's what it looks like. And the bottom one is just a crazy image of me playing with some toys with my clients, superheroes, trying to bring out some strengths in the kids. Also, I wrote a couple of books. One is on the body sensations, and one is like pulling out strengths through animal imagery. And then you could switch to the slide. Let's see, I won't bore you with all about me. I just wanted to give you just a little glimpse of where I'm coming from. These are a few images of what it looks like when I'm working with clients. These are not my actual clients because that work is so very confidential that these are actually my friends' kids. That in the upper left one is my own child. We just took some pictures so people would get a feel for what the actual therapy looks like, online and in person. Play therapy is just a way to help kids in a way that doesn't depend on words or understanding or insight or conceptualization or any of those higher level thinking processes. It goes deeper than that. And it's not even a way of getting kids to talk. The actual therapy's in the therapy. So we're going to talk about some components that goes into that in these slides. So if you could change the slide, Jenny, that'd be good. All right, so we're going to go over 5 things that really support emotional resilience, just that stress resilience. And when we think about our kids and we think about what they are being tasked to do on a daily basis, it can get really overwhelming, especially now with all of the changes in their lives. They're really adjusting to this limited social interaction, a lot of the e-learning, a lot of just not being out and about and doing their regular predictable routine. So it can cause some emotional dysregulation for sure. And what we know about stress resilience is much of it is really dependent on the child-parent relationship. And when I say child-parent relationship, it could be a child-grandparent relationship, child-caregiver relationship, the person in that child's life that they see as a nurturer, the wisdom figure, the protector figure, the person they're connected to. And that relationship really lays the groundwork in brain development for other relationships with themselves and others, and it sets the tone for the nervous system. And when we think about stress resilience, our nervous system is a big player in it, right? So how we as parents, and I say that because I have kids too, so I do want to normalize that parenting is hard. It's like the hardest thing ever sometimes. So it can push us to our limits. Definitely kids can push an emotional button. They can do things and say things that can just really kind of hit us hard, and it could cause us to, become reactive. So one of the metaphors that's used in the child-parent relationship therapy is be the thermostat, not the thermometer. When you think about thermometers, as the room gets hot, the thermometer rises, or if it gets cooler, it will fall. We really don't have any control over that, right? But if we are the thermostat, we can push the buttons and we can regulate the temperature in that room. So what that means through the metaphor of that is, as our children start to get stressed, and stress in children can look like tantrums, it can look like I hate you comments, you're the worst mom in the world, it can look like shut down, and we're going to talk about that in terms of window of tolerance, but it can look and feel very unpleasant. And as the heat goes up, it's important to regulate yourself. So as they get intense, just calm down your own body, which is definitely easier said than done, but we'll go over some techniques that you can actually do, some actual practical ways to calm down your own body that will cool off that situation, that then can help your child cool off. I know a lot of times as kids do things or situations happen and we react, it's like the kid can have their version of maybe emotional outburst or a tantrum or extreme upset. And also us as parents, we can have that same thing, and it just makes it bigger and larger and create emotional, like, relationship ruptures. And if we have a rupture in that relationship, which does happen, and it happens in healthy relationships, we go in and out of different levels of connection, it is important to make repair attempts. It's important to come back to your child after you've cooled off and say, hey, I wish I would have done something differently there. If I could go back in time, I would have stopped right there. I would have went to the side, calmed my body, and came back to you when I was able to think with my full brain, because I do want you to know that I love you. And that repair can really make things not only better in the moment, but it does something in the brain that gives them hope in its repair, that kind of doesn't lead to a defining moment in their life that really makes them think, I can't trust, or I don't matter, or I'm not good enough. It helps to prevent any of those big negative cognitions that then can influence people's lives so greatly. So be the thermostat, not the thermometer. And we're going to talk about in just a minute the actual ways that you can do that. All right, so let's change the slide. Thank you. Let's talk about the nervous system. So these were the only two pictures that I could find that weren't somebody else's copyrighted stuff. So I do apologize for the look of them, but I'm going to describe them to you. But basically, there's this theory which is absolutely brilliant. It's called the polyvagal theory. And it's this concept of we have things go on in our conscious and our unconscious brain that as they come up and as they just kind of alert us during the day, it follows through this vagus nerve in our the side of our neck, and it goes to the different organs in our body. We have a web of connections with the nervous system in our body. As you can see, in this baby picture and an older, I work with many adults. The oldest person that I think I've worked with was 86 and the youngest was 3. So this applies across the board, but the brain really sends messages to this web of connection that goes around the heart, it goes around the gut, it goes around the different parts, like the whole nervous system, your limbs, all of those webs of connection. They can constrict and tighten. So it sends messages of like safety or danger, if we think of it as a continuum, like, is this situation safe? Or is this situation dangerous? Does this person care about me? Or could they couldn't care less? So all of these ways of communication are really seen, or let's say felt, in the body that goes way past our words. So I'm going to say a few phrases, and I want you to just kind of be aware of what you notice, like physical sensation in your body, and see if this matches. And I'm not sure if you can see my image or not. Jenny, can they see my face?
We can see your face. I
Oh,
think-
you can see face? Okay.
Yes.
Well, not that that's important, but just for the purpose of this experience. So I'm going to say a few phrases, and I want you to just kind of notice what you feel in your body. Notice any kind of tightness or any tension. So good job on that homework. You did really good. I'm so proud of you. Good job on your homework. You did really good. I'm so proud of you. Notice a change. I said the same words, right? And I think on the flip side, us as parents, when our kids have that tone, it can really activate our nervous system. So this one is just going to be a look. And I think about, like, back in the days, well, I know kids still, we do pick them up from car loops still. Many kids are going to school in person, and many kids are on the computer all day, e-learning, and vice versa. But that very first look when we see a child, very first look when we see each other, it sends a message of communication even without words, but especially if it has some words. I know if our kids are struggling in school, like keeping up with homework or have some disciplinary issues, our first instinct would be like, did you do your homework? Or you got to do your homework before you're done. All that kind of sends a neuroception of danger. And when we have that neuroception of danger, we are forced into this like nervous system of rigidity. Everything starts to shut down. So we can't hear and be as flexible as what we would be otherwise. So that's where, like, when we're trying to get our kids to listen to us, or we're trying to have them consider a different option and they feel really rigid and closed down, that's why, is because they may be sensing that neuroception of danger. So I'm going to, if you can see my face, I want you just to kind of notice the feeling in your body from A, got the head tilted and a look of caring, to a very different. And I do want to kind of report that internal experiences, I feel different in my body when I'm doing it. So I'm then going to send out this neuroception of danger that I may have in me, that I'm feeling emotionally upset because I think you may not have done your homework, or I think you may have done something in class that is, potentially going to result in disciplinary issues. So there's a disconnect there. And when we have a disconnect, we're not communicating in all levels, and it can send a message to your kid that they internalize, like, I'm not good enough, I'm not safe, I'm a disappointment. And when you do that, kids kind of listen up to that, and they will live up to that. So we want to make sure we're communicating these things to our kids that we eventually eventually, like in the present, we want them to actually work out. So let's go to the next slide, please. I'm just going to let my dog in real quick. She's scratching at the door. Here you go, girl.
This is real life, guys. I know I'm taking notes right now. That's for sure.
So this right here, This is, these are little, they're kid images of the felt sense of emotions in the body. I had a graphic designer do this after, there's many versions of this that I use with my adult clients to really give them an understanding of the emotions that they feel in the body, because when you can access it in the body, then you can process through it through some of these techniques. If we've had a tough childhood, if we've had tough experiences, and we'll call them traumas, distressing or disturbing events, it can have us kind of numb out parts of our body. And so we still have these big emotions, but we don't have access to them in our body to release. It's even like a felt sense of energy. So if you look at these images, they really illustrate how your body feels these emotions. So when I'm working with kids and working with parents and adults, just humans, as humans, with that, that polyvagal theory where in our brain we have these unconscious and conscious messages that are sent to our body, then we start to really realize, ooh, right now I'm feeling a deep heaviness in my chest, or I'm feeling this dropping feeling in my stomach. I'm noticing I got a knot in my throat. I feel like I'm going to start crying, or my hands are feeling numb. I can't go to school. For one, we get an understanding that when our kids say, "Oh, I got a tummy ache, I can't go," that really is, it's not something that, well, I guess to some extent it is in their mind. We call it psychosomatic, but it's in their mind that connects with their body. And by really noticing what you're feeling in your body and doing some of these techniques we're going to practice in a minute to release that, you can teach that to your kids too. And that's what helps get through these tough times and helps kids to be resilient. As the stress hits, they are able to be flexible, and they're able to bounce back. They're able to be confident and competent and think, you know what, this is really hard, but I can do hard things. This feels really sad, but I can be sad and still be okay. So that's what we mean by the felt sense of emotions. So if we could change the slide, please. Okay, so let's talk about the next one. And this one, I have to say, I do this child-parent relationship therapy, especially with a lot of families of adoption, to really strengthen that bond in the relationship. And I used to bring in donuts until I realized not everybody eats as much donuts. And I was sitting there after the session eating all these donuts in these holes. So now I just use the picture of it. But when we look at a donut, sometimes we look at the donut and sometimes we look at the whole. When we look at our kid, especially a kid that's struggling, we look at what they're struggling with. Oh, he can't focus. She can't sit down. She can't make friends. She can't clean her room. She doesn't eat right. She only eats chicken nuggets and hot dogs. He screams at me, can't regulate himself. He can't even sleep in his room by himself. Oh, just saying all of those string of negatives, I feel a sense of hopelessness in my body, and I'm not even talking about a kid to myself that is personally related to me. When you focus on the whole, when you focus on the struggle and the weaknesses, it can feel devastating. You show up. You don't send a neuroception of hope or safety or connection. It's more of a neuroception of despair that they get from us, and it can make it worse. So focusing on their strengths. Now, I'm not saying to be in denial or like at the end of the day, it is a real fact that your child may struggle with focus. Your child may struggle with completion of work. Your child may struggle with emotional regulation, and your child may, that's what we need to work on. But if we put that at the forefront of that's who my kid is, the kid will feel that, they will live it, and it will get worse. But when you focus on these strengths, like, okay, so my kid is super playful. My kid's loving. He always likes to snuggle. When he wakes up, he gives me a hug. And, a few things, he does struggle with getting his work done. He does struggle with turning in his work. And his backpack has so much I found assignments in there from last quarter in there. But he's so loving, and he's trying, and I love how he plays with his little sister. Notice how it has a very different feel. It has a different feel when I say it, but imagine if that was about you. You would show up in a different way. You would then have this like energy to like, yeah, you know what? I'm a good person. I'm trying hard. These things are hard for me, but I can do more. I have some strengths. And then when we can build our kids up in these ways, in these small little minute ways of like our gestures and our looks and our comments and our moments of connection, that's when we get a kid that can deal with some stressful times. All right, so let's look at the next slide. So what, we think about our cognitions about ourselves really define ourselves. Kids that are struggling sometimes slip into, I can't do it. It's too hard. That teacher hates me. And we want them to kind of move past that to, I can do difficult things. And when we talk about motivation, we think of, yeah, this kid just isn't even working. This kid, they haven't done their homework. I can't even get them to go to school. They're just not motivated. It kind of sounds like a really devastating situation, right? But if you think about it from the child's perspective, if they feel like I'm not good enough, I'm stupid, I can't do things right, I don't matter, I'm just an inconvenience, that constant feeling of negativity, the motivation does not flourish in there. Think of that as like maybe like a barren field without any fertilizer. When we start building kids up through a strong, healthy relationship and connection, and when those ruptures happen, we repair them, then they have the capacity to have that motivation from the inside. That's when a kid is like, yeah, I want to do my homework because I want to do my homework. I want to learn this stuff, or I want to be successful, or I want to, not because so-and-so wants me to, or not because I'm going to lose my games, or not because I want to go over so-and-so's house, but I want to do this because it benefits me and I can do hard things. And that is really nurtured through helping your child really realize that they have all these positive qualities that goes far past words. I mean, we could sit there and talk to our kids all day about, you're so smart, you're so capable, but those are words. We need to put it into our everyday, like the way that we communicate with them, the way that we, when we respond to, when they make a mistake, say, I know you're feeling really frustrated right now. You really wanted to do that. And I remember you did forget your project at home. I bet that's hard. Leaning in with empathy, they call it connect and redirect. Leaning in with connection and reflection of feeling, and then just pause, let your child feel felt and connected. And then you could say, however, I wonder if it's connected to the cluttered backpack. I wonder what would help. I had heard that if we dump out the backpack every 3 days and just kind of go through it, that can help. When they're at that neuroception of safety, they're going to be more receptive to what you're saying and what you're suggesting. And then some of these things that will be helpful won't necessarily be shut down right away and met with resistance. It'll be, oh, yeah, let's do that. All right, so let's move on to the next slide. I feel like I'm talking your ears off, but I guess that's how this is working in this setting.
It's all good stuff. It's all good information.
Thank you. Okay, so this one right here, this one really speaks to, it's hard being a parent. There is no perfect parent. In fact, kids don't need perfect parents. They need real people that are doing the best they can and are showing up for their kids. And when something happens and they make a mistake, they say something or do something that creates a rupture, they have enough kind of wherewithal inside of them, which is hard. I'm a parent, so I know that this is something that can be very difficult. There's more to it than just saying, oh, I messed up back there, because it could hit on some stuff that maybe some unfinished business, some painful things from our past when we were a kid. But when we do something and when we say things that could potentially leave like ruptures in the relationship, going back and making a repair with your child is really important. And this rule of thumb from the child-parent relationship therapy is, what's most important may not be what you did, but what you do after you did what you did. So it may sound like in the moment, and your kid's like right in your face with a, I hate you, you're the worst mom in the world, I can't believe you're doing that. And I say that, it sounds extreme, but I know many people out there can connect with that, because as our kids, as we become dysregulated, it's like part of our brain, our prefrontal cortex goes offline. And we say and we do things without considering the impact, without like engaging that higher level thinking part of the brain of whether this is a good idea or whether it's not. That's why regulation is so important. It keeps that part of the brain back online. So it may sound like, you may respond like when they're in your face, you're the worst kid, just go to your room, I can't believe you're doing this. I'm going to put your game on eBay and sell. I mean, something really extreme, that you just want to cause that kid some emotional pain enough to where they will learn that that's not okay. So I've been there, so I'm normalizing it for those of you who have had that experience, because it can happen so quickly. And then afterwards, you have like a wave of guilt, of this parent guilt. And then you start to kind of internalize some of the things they said. And it's overall just like the heaviest, like yuckiest, worst situation. And it just leaves a scar on both of you. So coming back to the kid and saying, you know what happened yesterday? And you do want to make sure that you're regulated when you have this conversation, that things are feeling calmer in your body. Coming back and saying, you know what? I wish I would have handled that differently yesterday. I know that was hard for you, and that felt really intense for me. But if I had it to do over again, I would have calmed my body, and I would have given you a chance to calm your body, and then we could have talked about this in a different way. So it's not as simple as that. There's more pieces, but just knowing that coming back and making that repair with your child is modeling to them that they can make a repair, but also goes much deeper, like I'm worthy of connection, I'm worthy of respect. And it really prevents that shame. Shame, like when we think of emotions, there's emotions have different levels of intensity and different levels of impact on us. When I think of guilt, like it's, I did something bad. That feels yucky, like I messed up, I did something bad. But in that I did something bad, there's this sort of, okay, now I can do something differently next time. So that has a certain amount of like, ugh. But with shame, it's I am bad. And when there's a I am bad, a lot of times it doesn't feel changeable. It feels like that's who I am. I'm a bad person. And if we intentionally or unintentionally put that on our child, makes life so hard. And imagine they have this big kind of cylinder of stress resilience. That shame is going to gobble it up, like it's going to make it to where other stuff is going to feel like way more out of proportionate, like huge, because they don't have as much capacity to deal with stress because that shame is gobbling it up. All right, so let's go to the next. So it all comes down to trust. As parents, as significant caregivers with our child, they are really gauging how the world works. They're gauging of, can I trust that this person is going to keep me safe, is going to keep me connected? And when you feel like you can trust, I mean, it really lays that groundwork for other situations. So being able to really connect with our children in a way that sends that neuroception of safety not only helps your relationship and their stress resilience, but it's going to long term really influence who they pick for a life partner. It's going to influence how they think about themselves. It's going to influence whether they get into a certain field, like if they feel like they can trust that people will be there for them. So, out of the scope of this presentation, there's a concept of attachment. And when the parent, when we are born, we show up in this world just wired for connection. Like we can't survive without connection. Suppose like a little baby's born and there's no connection, even if like everything is delivered to this child without any human interaction, just like robots provide the nourishment and the changing of the diaper and all of that, the child's brain will develop differently, but without that that human connection. So even like in NICU, especially in NICUs, when there are a lot of devices and keeping that child kind of in that space of growth, if they're born early, there's a special attention that's made to let's give this child as much human interaction as we can through facial gestures, if they can tolerate touch. All of that influences the baby's development. That's why massage and storytelling is so good for infants. So the child learns that I can trust. But as our kids grow, if we are a sense of that nurturing figure, but also we are a sense of danger. Like we're there, they have to go to us for survival, for food, for shelter, all of those basic needs on the Maslow hierarchy of needs. But also we're the person they're scared of. Also we're the person that they fear, that they feel that visceral response of fear in their body when they're around us. That confuses the brain. They go towards and they pull away. They go towards and they pull away. And that can gobble up that stress resilience. It can create this sense of distrust of, this isn't safe. And you may think, of course it's safe. This is your English class. Look at this teacher. We see her in church every Sunday. She's Mrs. So-and-so, and she's like the nicest person on the planet. But they internally have this, just because these people are there to help me doesn't mean that they're safe. So there's a confusion that goes in the brain. That's why it's so important to keep yourself regulated. All right, the next slide. All right, so this one, I was super guilty of, actually I'm tempted to do this too when things come up stressful in my life with my own kids. While your child is drowning, don't try to teach him or her to swim. So when they're going through the tough time, whatever it is, you may think if they only knew this, if they knew that, if they knew this, or I have this great information, if they knew that right now, things would be better. Well, in the moment, if you're drowning, you really don't need somebody to teach you the breaststroke, right? You need somebody to help you get out of the water, to guide you to the buoy or whatever it takes. So being able to kind of give that space when the child's struggling, connect, lean in with empathy and love, wait till the child's regulated again where they're calmer, wait till you are calmer, and then you could say, I seen what happened back there. Let's talk about that. Then they're able to kind of go back and learn. But if I'm drowning, I don't need to know how to do the breaststroke. I need to get to safety. And then maybe tomorrow when I'm dried off and I'm breathing regularly and I could think, then maybe I'll be up for a swimming lesson. All right, so let's move to the next slide. So when we think about stress resilience, that I can handle this. We've all felt it, like I can't handle this. This is just too much. This is horrible. It's this felt sense of like overload. Like if I had a breaker, it's going to swim. It's going to pop and then I'm not going to be able to function. So when we can connect with our children and when we can really focus on the relationship. And that's, I guess, if I could pick one thing that I would like you to take away from this relation or this presentation, is the importance of the child-parent relationship. There is nothing that is more important than keeping that sense of safety and connection. There is no lesson, there is no getting something turned in, and like you're going to get an opposite response, especially long term. If you rupture that relationship, go back and repair it, because if you don't and it stays ruptured, the results are they can be detrimental, and they can make it to where a kid just feels like I can't handle tough things. And that's when you think, wow, this is like on the scale of 0 to 10, this is like a 2, but my kid is like, I'm acting like it's a 10. The fact that we can't go to Disney World today, and we said we were going to, but grandma's sick in the hospital, and of course we can't. They're acting like it's like the worst thing in the world, but it's really not a big deal. It's just Disney World. In your mind, it's hard to conceptualize, like, why can't they handle this stress? Even though I told them we're going to go late or whatever. That's why, because their stress resilience is gobbled up. So, and it is important to know that even if the situation is tough right now, you can start these things. Like, it is never too late to go back and repair those ruptures. I have many clients over the years where I do parent-child relationship therapy with adult children and their parents. And it's just beautiful to see that connection, even with, as they're in their 30s and their 40s. It can go back, and it can become a beautiful connection that then changes how the person feels about themselves. So very influential. So the next slide, please. All right, so let's talk about play. I am a registered play therapist, and a lot of times play seems like you can play once you have everything done. But I want you to think about it in a different respect, as when you're engaged in play, you are flexible and open. It takes you away from that rigid state. So when you're flexible and open, you are able to connect, you're able to laugh, you're able to have good experiences, you're able to get that I matter, I'm worthy, I'm good enough. All of those thoughts about yourself can just blossom. You then have that flexibility, and it generalizes to the rest of your life. It's like incredible how it works. And you then lose that rigidity of like, oh, I have to have things this way. I have these unspoken rules in my life. I can only do this. I can only do that. We think about like the symptoms of OCD. It's that rigidity. Things have to be a certain way. When we have play in our lives, especially within a family, it results in like emotional regulation, self-esteem. It enhances the relationships, like they're able to connect with their peers better. They can calm their body. They can communicate. They can handle stress in a better way. All right, so next. Play, I just seen from Rachel, says why play is so critical during the school day. That could not be truer. It is very critical. So the window of tolerance, we think of like the red zone, the green zone, and the blue zone. This is from my book that I feel in my body. This is the way I teach it to children, is like they have that window of tolerance. They have their green zone, that's optimal functioning. That's when they're jamming, they're getting their homework done, they're chatting with their friends, they're listening, they're able to have that flexibility. Their red zone is when it's just too much. So they may be screaming and yelling, and they may be just out of their window of tolerance. The blue zone is when they shut down, they withdraw. They may not want to talk. They may not do homework. They can't get out of bed. So helping kids, helping parents just really understand not only those zones, but how do you pull out of them. And I know we're running out of time, so I want to kind of go through these next slides fast. I think we only have like 4 minutes. But this is one of the activities I do with younger children that I work with. We talk about like, oh, it sounds like you're wearing your green me. Oh, you got to your red me. Do you remember? You can smell the flower, blow out the candle. So all of those pieces, they kind of tie into awareness and what they can do. All right, so the next one. So this is 7 ways to calm my body, and I do have this sheet on YouTube. So if you YouTube Jackie Flynn 7 ways to calm my body, in the comments of the little video that I made of how to use it, just click on that, and you don't need any email address or anything. It's like totally free. Just download it. You can put this on your refrigerator. You can do it yourself. You can teach it to your kids. It really just helps the body regulate through the somatic awareness, like feeling what you feel in your body, through the felt sense and breathing, imagery, that lemon as we create. And if I had time to do this with you today, we would do like an activity to where we create saliva in the mouth, and that helps that fight, flight, or freeze just kind of de-escalate. So those, and if you watch that video there, you'll get it all. Those are explained in there, and they're ways that you can regulate yourself as well as help your kids regulate. All right, so next one. So the next one and the last one, you can't give away that of what you don't possess. I know when we're on a flight, the flight attendant says, be sure to put on your oxygen mask before you put on those around you. If you don't have oxygen, you're not going to be able to give your kids oxygen. If you're not regulated in your body and you're in a state of distress, your kids are not going to be regulated in a state of equilibrium, because that communicates to them that neuroception of danger and unsettlement. So be sure you take care of yourself, and then you show up to your kids in a different way. All right, the next one. This is just a little follow-up of co-regulation before regulation. Self-regulation, I think a lot of times we think, oh, I'm going to give my kid this sheet. They're going to do these things and they're going to calm down. If we don't co-regulate, if we're in a state of distress and we're with them, expecting them to regulate is really irrational. It doesn't work like that. It would be nice if it did, but we need to regulate ourselves. We need to connect before they can then get to that state of peace in their nervous system. And the next one, and that really feeds into the self-esteem. That's why being there with your children in a connected way, it sends that thought about I matter. And if you float back through the years, you may have had some relationships, or you may have had some situations where you felt like, I don't matter. And just kind of notice what you feel in your body, and notice if that puts you in a place of, oh, I want to do better, or does it put you in that, like the blue zone that we talked about of just shutting down. And then the next slide. And then that's it.
Wow, you just filled my bucket. And I know, I mean it sincerely. You gave us so many great pointers and things that we can carry forward. And I saw in the chat box many times people were saying, gosh, I could do this with my coworkers as well. But this is about in life. If we could adopt these ideas and theories, and I can't thank you enough, Jackie. You really inspired us today, and I can see again from the chat box, this was awesome, and it's really making me think that we need to do more with you. And if there's a way that we can share this, we record this meeting, and you and I will talk to see if you give us permission that parents can share it. So.
Absolutely. And I do like doing these presentations. So if anybody listening out there has like a group of people, or someone that an organization that is in need of this, then generally I'll do like a 30-minute presentation free of charge, if I can, make the time for it, if there's availability in the schedule. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. I do get about a gazillion emails every day. So if I don't respond, feel free to email me back over and over again and be like, hey, reply to this. Because I would love to be there for you.
Well, we so appreciate you. And I feel like you gave us all a gift today, and I think you're going to be getting some emails very
Oh,
soon.
thanks for having me. I
Oh, it was
love
our
you. Jenny.
pleasure.
You're the best.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Wow. So many of the thoughts and ideas are still resonating within me, but we do need to move on. And but we're staying kind of within our mental health theme a bit. And we're going to talk about the mental and emotional health education that Brevard Public Schools and actually all schools in Florida are required to do. I know you heard a little bit about it last year, and now this year we're going to be starting that up again. And we just wanted to bring some of our leaders in that area to present to you today to talk about it. And I am very pleased to present to you Rachel Winston. She is one of our resource teachers, and she wears many, many hats. But one of them has been that she has led this committee for mental health education, and she's led it very well. And also Dr. Janelle Ensign, who has also, she's come into us new this year, and she has been just an amazing support and kind of moving us forward. So I would like to turn it over to the both of you right now.
Thank you, Jenny. Can you hear me?
Yeah, a little louder.
Okay. Is that better?
Better.
Okay. Sorry. These headphones are new. I apologize if I break up. My internet connection is not totally stable, but we'll keep going. So my name is Rachel Winston, and I am the district resource teacher for health education and physical education. I've been in the education field for 20 years, and I've been blessed enough to kind of help to lead this charge with our friends over in Student Services. So why are we doing mental and emotional health education? Did that screen not pop? There we go. So Janelle, did you want to kind of talk through that a little?
Yes. So in alignment with the Florida State Board of Education ruling, students enrolled in grades 6 through 12 are to receive 5 hours of instruction in mental and emotional health during the school year. Using health education standards, the instruction is to advance each year through developmentally appropriate instruction that includes both knowledge as well as skill building. And by July 1st of each year, each school district in Florida must submit an annual report to the commissioner that verifies completion of the instruction and includes a description of the materials and resources that were used to deliver instruction, as well as the professional qualifications of the people who delivered the instruction. Okay, next slide.
So the state board rule has some very, very specific requirements, and we tailor our lessons and our activities around these 10 very, very specific requirements. So we look at, and this is for grades 6 through 12, we look at signs and symptoms of mental health disorders, prevention of mental health disorders, mental health awareness and assistance, reducing stigma. We do awareness of resources, local in the school and out in the community. And we've had some great community partners working with us to help reach the students and provide good information. The process for accessing treatment, which involves some of our school processes as well. We do a lot with those healthy coping techniques, and we just picked up some more from Jackie Flynn right there. So that was great. Strategies to support peers, friends, family members. There is suicide prevention in there, and the prevention of the abuse and addiction to alcohol, nicotine, and drugs. So those are the 10 topics. They look a little different on the varying grade levels, and we'll kind of go through a little bit of that now. So next slide. Who's creating the lessons, who's delivering the instruction, and who is providing the supports? Next slide. So who's creating these lessons? It is a huge group effort. And Dr. Ensign and I are lucky enough to kind of lead this group, but we've had input from health education teachers, resource teachers, school counselors, school psychologists, psychologists from out in the community. We have our ESE teachers and ESE resource teachers on our committee with us to make sure that the lessons are differentiated and meet the needs of all of our students. We've got our school social workers on board. We have a substance use prevention specialist at the district who sits at our committee. We have suicide risk specialists. We have our sources of strength facilitator who sits on our committee, suicide prevention contacts, our trauma-informed care facilitator, and I believe most, if not all, of our committee members are either trained in or trainers for adult and youth mental health first aid. But we do have our lead district trainers for that who sit on our committee as well. So it is an extremely knowledgeable and diverse group of folks who are providing input into what we're putting in the lessons. Certified teachers, and in some cases, school counselors are delivering the instruction. And again, that depends on grade level and school. And then who's providing the supports, and by supports, we more mean if a student is triggered by something that is said or reviewed in any of the lessons, who's providing the mental and emotional support afterwards to get that child what they need. And those are our school counselors, our school-based social workers, our school psychologists, of course, our site school-based administrators, and then if necessary, we have district social workers, district school psychologists, and local mental health professionals who all can come in and provide supports to our students and to our schools. Next slide. So I think the big question you all want to know is, what are you teaching? What are our students learning? And so we'll kind of go by the different grade bands to review that. So for sixth grade is done by the classroom teachers with some support from school counselors. Sixth grade was trained last year, and for the new teachers, I'm doing some scattered trainings this year, but they do a really nice introduction to mental health. They talk about stigma and trying to reduce the stigma around mental health. And I liked what Jackie said in her presentation about getting students to getting kids to recognize emotions and when things become overwhelming, because that's exactly what we do in those lessons, is we get students to be able to understand and work through and verbalize those emotions. And then recognizing when their emotions get too big and they get overwhelmed or they get stressed out, I guess in that red, green, blue analogy, when they go either red or blue, recognizing when that goes. So Peyton wants to know why this isn't required in elementary schools. The requirement for this is 612, and so that's what we're working with. It's a state requirement. We have a health education curriculum that does address K-5. It's just not part of what the state board rule requires. So that's kind of what we're touching on.
Rachel, there's also social and emotional learning that occurs in elementary schools. It's a separate program for this. This is simply for the state requirement. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ensign, for reminding me of that. Yes, we do have a separate SEL curriculum. Sorry, I got distracted by the chat. We go over empathy and compassion, and so we don't necessarily specifically talk about suicide in sixth grade, and there's a lot of reasons behind that, but we do a lot of the prevention work ahead of it. They talk about suicide starting 7th and 8th grade, but in 6th grade, we do some of the prevention work for that topic. We do healthy coping strategies. Every single lesson ends with a mindfulness or a breathing strategy. We do talk about signs and symptoms of anxiety and depression, and that lesson is done by me. I did the voiceovers. I had all the people in the group kind of give input, and so that's not something that the teachers can change up. It's a pretty good little video that the kids watch, but it's standard across the district what they're watching. We do substance use prevention, and we really look at refusal skills. So we don't necessarily go into the details of what certain drugs are. Kids know drugs are bad. They know, illegal and other drugs and alcohol is bad for them. And so we don't need to teach them that. What we need to do is teach them how to say no. And so that's kind of what we do. And there's some role playing and some other things involved in that. And I will say I've been in communication with some 6th grade teachers this year, and they are doing a phenomenal job modifying the existing lessons for our e-learners to ensure that it is equitable across the board and everybody is getting a high quality content to meet the state board rule. So if you're a parent of an e-learner, fear not, those teachers are taking care of it. Into 7th and 8th grade, This year, our substance use prevention is going to focus on vaping. We know that's a big issue with our middle schoolers, so we are touching on that. For substance use prevention, we're also looking at influences and decision making. We have a lesson on school and community resources and how to, who's in their building and who is available to help them, how to get that help. Then we look at some of the positive sides of mental health, so emotional first aid, recognizing when they might just need to take some of those mindful minutes or do some of those deep breathing exercises. And then looking at the positive side of mental health, where we all have mental health, and how do we keep that mental health. We go a little bit more into signs, symptoms, and coping for depression and anxiety, reducing the stigma, some healthy coping strategies, so exploring some other deep breathing and mindfulness activities, looking at supporting peers, friends, and family members. There's a suicide prevention lesson done by our suicide prevention specialists. And then there's a separate lesson, because Ginny, we didn't go into the child trafficking piece yet, but there is a lesson on child trafficking awareness, and we're going to get into that at the bottom. So if you have questions, hang on, because we're going to get there. I promise. Next slide. So our high school, we're starting out with a prescription drug safety course, and that's on a platform called Everfi, and it's fabulous. The opioid crisis is running pretty rampant, and so this addresses some of that and prescription drug misuse and abuse. And the system also goes into those refusal skills, which are, of course, a critical part of substance use prevention. The how to support a peer, family, or friend suffering from addiction is also included in that, which hits that supporting that peer, family, or friend. We've got a great lesson on school and community resources and who's available for them, the emotional first aid, looking at the signs, symptoms, and coping for anxiety and depression, teen mental health perspectives. We're trying to work with our TV production classes to actually get video of kids, by kids, for kids, so that they can kind of talk through or give input on some of the issues related to mental health that may be happening in our school. So we are working on that right now. Those healthy coping strategies, again, the support, suicide prevention. We've got a lesson on reducing the stigma, and of course that the child trafficking lesson, which is a whole other piece. Next slide. So where and when are these lessons being taught? Each school has to submit a plan to the district. The schools determine when the lessons are taught. So it may be, you know, they may wait and do kind of twice a month. They may wait and do once a week. But that is up to them. If you have questions about that, you should speak to your school administrator. They have a plan. And the district will be releasing 2 lessons a month. And we released our first 2 lessons last week, and we'll be releasing them through February. And that is to prevent them from actually kind of bunching them together and overwhelming our students by teaching too much at one time. We really learned a lot last year where some schools may have done that, and we felt like it needed to be spaced out more and give students time to absorb and learn. So hopefully that is happening. But if you have specific questions about what your students' school plan is, please reach out to your administrator, your principal, or your assistant principal for curriculum. Next slide.
This is our segue into
Okay, this is the segue.
trafficking piece. Yes. We're just going to show a short video, hopefully, but we just also want to say that this was brand new last year, and we know that, you know, we get better. We get better at things. And then last year we had that big bump in the road called COVID, and it kind of shut everything down. So we definitely see your comments, and we appreciate your input. And we hope that this year we're just a little bit better at it.
Her, please, just let her go.
Danielle Vega's daughter had just
I
disappeared.
can't see the
And
video.
deputies say the 11-year-old met online. An Amber Alert went out Saturday to help track the child down. She was found later that night after deputies pulled over key.
Okay, we're getting there.
Danielle Lama.
News now from Fox. Experience breaking news as it occurs.
A non-stop stream
Wait,
of
I guess we
content
have to
and
see
live
this
events
ad
around the
first.
nation and the world. A front row seat to news happening right now.
Several thousand strong.
News Now from Fox.
Has the latest.
I want my daughter to come home safe. And so if you have her, please just let her go.
Danielle Vega's daughter had just disappeared with the man deputies say the 11-year-old met online. An Amber Alert went out Saturday to help track the child down. She was found later that night after deputies pulled over Keith Edward Green Jr. on the interstate near Destin. 26-year-old Green charged with kidnapping. Tonight, court documents reveal new disturbing details about the case. Investigators say Green communicated with the child through Instagram, telling her to pack her bags. Deputies also say Green sent the girl messages that said they would have to lay low for about 6 or 7 years, and that because she was 11, he was risking his life to be with her.
My goodness, we really have to keep our eyes on this.
Cyber expert Tom Jelnick says parents know they should be monitoring their kids' social media, but there's not always time. He suggests a few apps that do the work for you: NetNanny, Bark, and Mama Bear.
Basically, you set it up and it goes out and it monitors all of the accounts that you want it to monitor for chatter, and it notifies you if there's any shenanigans.
He also says to stay up to date on the latest trends because kids can find ways to keep things from parents.
There was a whole calculator where you put in a certain code and it unlocks it. It looked just like a calculator, and then they'll drop in photos or whatever they don't want you to see as a parent.
In Orange County, Danielle Lama, Fox 35 News.
So as we've kind of been saying, the state board does also require districts.
Keep going. We'll get
Okay. The state board does also require districts to provide students in grades K through 12 with instruction in child trafficking prevention and awareness. Teachers are again expected to use the health education standards in order to provide age-appropriate instruction when addressing the following topics: recognition and signs of child trafficking, awareness of resources, including national, state, and local resources, substance use and abuse prevention, information on the prevalence, nature, and strategies to reduce the risk of child trafficking, as well as strategies to set healthy boundaries and how to safely seek assistance. And then finally, information on how social media and mobile device apps are used for child trafficking. There is no time requirement for child trafficking instruction like there is for the mental emotional health instruction, but the rule does specify that instruction should be developmentally appropriate, should include skill building, and should utilize evidence-based programs of instruction. So Rachel, you're going to talk about.
Yep. So who and how? In our elementary schools, we're using the Monique Burr Child Safety Matters curriculum. Lessons are delivered by classroom teachers or school counselors and media specialists, and the media specialists do a lot of the internet safety, and it is a school-based decision as to who is teaching which lesson and when. So if you have questions, again, reach out to your principals. For our secondary schools, we've this year included it within the mental health lesson sequence. We are currently developing lessons using research and evidence-based resources. The lessons will be delivered by teachers, school counselors, or school social workers, depending on the school. We also had Melbourne High School last year who created for us some wonderful PSAs that we are going to share with schools that they can use to help increase awareness during announcements. So that's who and how. Jenny, next slide. And so if you need to contact us, there's our contact information. I was looking through the chat and I saw some of the comments. Please know that we did receive some of that feedback last year, and we did change up some of the formatting and how the lessons are to be delivered to make them a little bit more engaging and not feel so much like checking a box. We are working with our administrators and our teachers. We have some model schools that we were in last year that did a phenomenal job of really engaging with the students in this instruction. So we're leaning on those schools a little bit to help provide some of the how they did it and the administrators on how they motivated their teachers, and the teachers on what strategies they used when implementing the lessons. So we are aware of that engagement issue, and we're doing our best to address it.
And your feedback is important.
Yes.
And here's another comment, Rachel. Lockmar did an activity for e-learning the second weekend. It was all about self-esteem, and my son really loved that, and so did I. And that may have been a part of our SEL instruction. And when we say SEL, we're saying social emotional learning. We do love acronyms, but social emotional learning, SEL. And then another comment, schools need to be better at communicating the dates and topics when the lessons are delivered so that parents can follow up if they choose. Excellent point. Excellent point. Please communicate that with your schools.
I'll just let you all know that the lessons that we released for use in October are related to the substance use and abuse prevention. We did that for the purpose of corresponding with Red Ribbon Week, which is in October. So, but the other lessons will be released two per month.
But that's a good point. That's something that perhaps we can share with our directors, that they can share with principals.
Yeah.
Great. Your feedback is so
Absolutely.
important.
Absolutely.
Are the schools sharing with e-learners?
Yes. They have to include, they have to have a plan for how they are going to present this to e-learners. Yes.
And that's another reason why we went with a somewhat of a different format this year, was to make it compatible for either synchronous or asynchronous instruction with the e-learners, depending on how the school's working their instruction.
That has to be reported to the state as well.
So if you don't think it's being provided to you, you need to reach out to your school, or being provided to your student, your child. You reach out to your school and check in with them. Your student may be getting this information. You may not be aware. You may not be aware. Any other questions for these wonderful presenters? So one of the things I want to say, and Rachel and Janelle, stay on the line for a minute. This is one piece of what our district is doing. And this is this came down as a mandate from the state. So this is one piece. Another piece of what we're doing, and we'll have somebody come to present on that as well, is the social emotional learning piece, which is really the foundational piece of what we want for our students. So that's another piece that we will share with you as a team, but that's going on in our schools as well.
Right, and I did take a look at that social emotional curriculum that is being used to make sure that we were not, just to see how they compared, and they do overlap some. I mean, they have some shared commonalities, but but one reason I looked at that curriculum was so that we could make sure that our lessons were separate from that and we're not overlapping too much. So these are when we're talking about mental health, we're talking about something a little bit different than what the SEL lessons are talking about. Right,
right. So so look for that coming up. Many of you have already gotten a letter that sort of let you know this was going to be happening in your school. I think elementary sent out a letter to families, or if you haven't received it, you will soon. So just sort of so you have awareness that this is happening, and your feedback is truly welcome. Okay, yeah, one of our schools received those letters. That's good. That's a good thing. So any other questions before we let these presenters go? All right, excellent. Hey, thank you so much, Rachel and Janelle. We really appreciate your expertise.
No problem.
Thanks, Ginny.
And for leading the committee. I'm a member of the committee, so believe me, I know how hard their work is. So we appreciate you very much. So before we move on to our presentation from our superintendent, and I'm not sure he's on the line yet. If he is, please let us know. I think he's coming soon. We just want to always give you an opportunity to provide input to us. And the reason why we just had this last presentation was because of questions that you had from our last meeting. So we really want you to, if there's something that you want to know more about, put it in the chat box. Javon and I will gather that information, and then we can, you know, as we plan for our next meeting, because it does matter to us what you have to say. Okay, and I see a comment. Oh, okay. To reach out. Yes. Thank you so much. And anytime you guys may be having any kind of a struggle with any of these pieces, please reach out to us. Javon and I, we can get in touch with the schools. We can kind of help navigate things for you. So don't hesitate to send us an email. So I see Nikki Hensley is on the line.
Hello.
And so hello, welcome. And I'm wondering, is Dr. Mullins with us as well?
I'm wondering as well. I know he got all the dial-in information.
Here
he
is.
is.
You can hear me, yep.
There he is. Great, great. Hi, Dr. Mullins, and thank you so much for being here. And you need so little introduction. So I'm going to turn it over to you so you can dive right into this wonderful presentation.
Well, thank you, Jenny. Good morning, everyone. Can you see me? I don't have a video. You can see me? Okay, yes. That's interesting. I cannot see myself. Not that that's a bad, but let me, any case, I'll keep going from there. So good morning and welcome Parent Leadership Academy, Parent Leadership Team to this Friday, October 2nd. You know, it's a unusual time, place, and space in the world today. I think if we were all honest, a couple months ago, we weren't sure we'd make it to October 2nd, and would we be in school, and would we be in session, and how would our kids be doing, and what would be going on. And I just want to give a huge shout out to our administrators and our teachers across our great schools who have done such a valiant and admirable job of supporting kids and supporting families in this very unusual time for all of us. And they just are working so hard. So before I get started in any other topic, I would encourage you, perhaps even this weekend, if you have a family member who is an educator, a neighbor, a friend, or even just your own kid's classroom teacher, the power of a written note, just a few words to say, I know this has been a very different and tough start to the school year. Thank you for your extra efforts to support our kids and community. Those types of things go such a long way. So would you take just a few minutes and send someone you appreciate out there in the education land a note, even if it's not in Brevard. Maybe you have a family member somewhere else across the country who you know is working hard to be supportive of our community and our kids. So I would appreciate it. With that, I'm going to open. I believe I'm sharing my screen. Nikki, are you running the PowerPoint or am I?
We're actually running the PowerPoint for you, Dr. Mullins.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's go. I appreciate the opportunity, Jenny, to talk with our Parent Leadership Academy folks about a very big decision that is coming to Brevard's residents that ultimately is a direct impact to our kids, but also Brevard's future. And that is the ballot referendum item that'll be on the November 3rd ballot. If you are a mail-in ballot recipient, you should be getting your mail-in ballot probably any day now. They've started sending them out from the Supervisor of Elections office. And you will see on the ballot the language that's on your screen now about the half-cent sales surtax extension for critical school facility security and technology upgrades. If you've been with Brevard Public Schools any length of time, you recall 6 years ago, we asked our community to come alongside us and help us address our deteriorating schools. Jenny, if you could go ahead and click to the next slide. And we made some commitments to our community as we went out to them about for this ask. And that was that we would commit to spending every dollar raised through the surtax on our critical infrastructure needs. In fact, we published to our community 6 years ago all of the expenditures that would be made across our schools and work sites. We also implemented an independent citizens oversight committee, put in place by the community to oversee all of the expenditures of the surtax initiative, and will report out to the school board and community every year on the progress that was being made. We also committed to third-party audits twice a year to look at the procurement process, the expenditures, and the budget to make sure that we were meeting all of our commitments and our requirements in the initiative. Now, this one may seem strange, no new debt, but the reality is some communities, when they have a local surtax revenue initiative, they'll actually bond debt against the anticipated revenue to front load the projects. We wanted to assure our community we would not take on any new debt. We would pay as we go to the projects to ensure that we were getting everything accomplished in a timely way. And we originally went out to the community with consideration of a 10-year surtax, and we heard back from our community 6 years ago, we're not ready to make a 10-year commitment. You have to earn and build our trust and confidence. And we heard our community and we reduced it to 6 years. But that's where we find ourselves today. If you want to go to the next slide. Quick lesson on operating versus capital budget, just so we all understand what the surtax contributes and assists. The school district has two essential budgets. One is the operating budget. That is our largest budget. That is funded through local property tax that goes up to Tallahassee. Our legislators put that with state revenue and give back to school districts what's called the base student allocation funding for school districts. And that's where we pay 80% of our budget is to pay staff costs, compensation benefits, as well as it funds all of the programs, the opportunities, the experiences, the learning materials that our kids experience on a day-to-day basis. Takes care of our music programs, art programs, science research, athletics, even our career technical education, and so on, but also funds some of those practical things we're familiar with a household budget, electricity, utilities, but also pays for or covers some of our professional development for staff. On the capital side, there is the capital budget, much smaller, significantly smaller than our operating budget. And those are the dollars that we have to support the building structures that go around our kids. Operating budget is everything within the classroom to support learning. The capital budget is the surroundings that are put into place to support the learning. That funds our facility renewal, maintenance and repair, technology, buses, property insurance, but also you'll see there an item debt service. Now you may be thinking, well, wait a minute, I thought we didn't have any debt because of the previous slide. Well, we do not have any debt as a result of the surtax, but now many years ago, back in 1998 through 2005 and 6, the school board at the time did take on debt to build new schools and expand schools and school renewal, because Brevard back then was experiencing, significant growth, and we needed schools to sustain that growth. So the school district at the time did go into several hundred millions of dollars of debt, and we've been paying that off ever since. And that debt payment comes out of our capital budget and actually takes up approximately 60% of our capital budget, which has significantly impacted our ability to keep up with facility renewal. So in the next slide, you'll see that 6 years ago, we did a facilities assessment and identified all of the critical infrastructure that was in either critical condition code 1 or 2. That means, the next slide. That means that those systems had either experienced failure or they were on the verge of failing. And as we looked at the dollar amount that represented, on this next slide, you'll see it was over $757 million of critical needs identified. But when we projected the revenue for the surtax, although we have exceeded the projections, $265 million is the anticipated revenue that will become a reality through the final month or two that's coming up. We've been able to put a considerable dent in the needs assessment, but there are over $490 million of critical needs that have remained. So you can see at the bottom of the list there, those are examples of the things that have not been funded through the last 6 years of the sales tax. So on the next slide, you'll see that we in fact have made a considerable difference in our schools. Our schools are safer. My hat is off to the planners of 6 years ago, the school board, for their foresight. We committed to enhanced safety long before Marjorie Stoneman Douglas occurred. And then as that became a reality, we accelerated the security projects and got them done even more quickly to be able to confidently say we kept our schools as safe and as early and safe as early as possible as we could, all approved and overseen by the Independent Citizens Oversight Committee. But perhaps the second most significant and important improvement we made is in air conditioning over the last 6 years, as we've invested somewhere between $100 to $120 million in air conditioning. But best, what I am proud to be able to tell you today is that we've honored those commitments I talked about a few minutes ago. Every one of our surtax dollars over the last 6 years has gone to meet critical infrastructure needs. Our Independent Citizen Oversight Committee has consistently and confidently given us 2 thumbs up on the management and utilization of those funds, and has said before the community that we continue to do what we committed to doing. As well as the external third-party audits. We've been through actually 10 now, and they've all come back with what we refer to as the 3 green check marks. A green check mark means that's good. That's no findings in the audits, and we've consistently had no finding audits throughout the life of the surtax. And I can assure you there has been no new debt accumulated or taken on by the school district during the last 6 years. So we've made considerable progress with that $265 million, $196 million of it going directly into facilities, $36 million in technology. I'll tell you, we've never experienced the demand that we have had on technology like we have over the last 6 months. And we are just increasingly thankful for this investment over the last 6 years, because it really is the infrastructure that has made managing and supporting distance learning and now e-learning for almost 20,000 of our kids possible during this very unanticipated time. But also you see there are almost $21 million invested into the security of our schools, hardening them to make them safer places for our students and our staff members. On the next slide, you'll see that this is an example of an air conditioning chiller plant that is supporting Satellite High School. Now, the picture doesn't do it justice, but the reality is that chiller plant actually is the equivalent of about 2 school buses that literally has to be put into place with a crane. Very large, very expensive. That's what we've been able to do the last 6 years. But in the next slides, you'll see that, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. The reality is that you see there in the red portion of the pie graph, 65% of the critical infrastructure needs remain even from the assessment 6 years ago. But I'll tell you that has been validated again in the last several months as we've completed a third-party comprehensive facility assessment as well as a security assessment, and our teams have done a technology assessment because we want to be able to tell our community we are making data-driven decisions. We have the data that validates this is where we stand today, and those critical infrastructure needs remain that are facing us in the future. In the next few slides, we have examples of the things that need to be addressed next. Those unfunded things from 6 years ago have now risen to the top as the most critical issue. You can see here a massive roof of one of our elementary schools, the size of 2 or 3 football fields. In the next slide, you see the deteriorating roof of Stone Middle School, water system failures, also electrical panels that are out of date and no longer meet compliance and need to be upgraded. Furniture across our schools, some of the same furniture that was put in those schools when they were built 50 plus years ago, as well as roofs that need to be addressed. And in the next slide, this is an example of another roof at South Lake Elementary School that needs to be addressed. And the next slide If you attended Kennedy or Jackson middle schools, this is the science lab furniture that is still in place when those schools were built in the 1960s. If you went to one of those schools, and I won't make you tell on yourself, but if you engraved your initials in one of those cabinets, they're still there because they're the original cabinets. But also examples of the doors at Park Elementary School, because we literally live in one of the most corrosive environments in the country, with 80 miles of oceanfront coastline. So the scope of the responsibility that we're facing today is we have over 100 facilities, 84 of which are traditional schools, but 52 of them are more than 50 years old. Not a surprise, as we all know that back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the Space Coast experienced expansive growth. But it makes up almost 13 million square feet of air-conditioned space with a replacement value of over $2 billion. And within those facilities, we're supporting approximately 80,000 pieces of technology, from computers to servers and other related equipment. And the reality is we've not been able to keep up with the computer demands, the device demands that our teachers want and need in their classrooms for kids. So as we've pushed in new computers, teachers are keeping those 12 and 15-year-old machines, even though they run slow and are not very efficient. And such, we found ourselves in a 20-year replacement cycle. So by this time, you may be saying, wow, we really have a big problem. Mr. Superintendent, I hope you have a big solution. Well, the good news is, as you see here in 2015 to 20, we've laid a solid foundation of investment in facilities, technology, and security. And as we come before our community and suggest we need to continue that investment, it is in those same areas of facility to technology and security to continue addressing that $490 million of deferred maintenance and critical infrastructure replacement that is needed over the next 6 years. Jenny, if you go to the next slide. So the anticipated revenue of the extension would be approximately $240 million, where we would invest 168 into facilities and $36 million into each of technology and security. So our facilities assessment that was completed just a few months ago validated the assessment of 6 years ago by where we see HVAC significantly going down low on the list of infrastructure that needs to be replaced. But other critical infrastructure like roofs, water systems, air conditioning as well as electrical systems have now risen on the list that total over $100 million alone, even without the technology and security investments. Our security assessment that was completed by a third party back in April, it identified first, the company gave us many commendations for the work that we have done, that almost $20 million investment we made over the last 6 years. But at the same time, they also identified nearly $50 million of recommended capital improvements to really make our schools safer places for students and staff. This $36 million allocated would make a huge impact on that for our students and staff. But so all of the things you see listed here are a result of data-driven assessments. But we've gone one step further. On the next slide, you'll see examples of specific site-by-site commitments of how those dollars would be spent. And you can go on our website, you see it there at the bottom, brevardschools.org /surtax renewal, and you can see literally where the dollars are being spent at every one of those 100 facilities across Brevard County. So what does that mean to us as residents of Brevard? Well, first, put it into context. A household income of approximately $50,000, where 10% of income would be spent on taxable items, that would be a $25 contribution to Brevard Public Schools surtax initiative. But let me emphasize a couple things. Number one, this is not a new tax, and it is not an additional tax. This is an extension of that existing tax right now that we've all become accustomed to paying as part of our purchases. And then the second thing is the tax is not, it's not taxable on every purchase. For example, grocery staple items are not taxed, medicines are not taxed, large purchases like a vehicle or an RV or a boat, the half-cent only applies to the first $5,000 of that major purchase. So that is the impact a family or a household would continue to experience in this situation. And you see to the right of the screen there's several counties shaded in green, including Brevard, the long skinny one on the far right. The green shaded counties represent those areas that currently have a sales surtax for their public education system. So when we as Brevard citizens take our Brevard earned dollars and go to one of those surrounding areas, to a theme park, a playhouse, an event, or a mall, and we spend dollars, we're contributing to that county's local school system. But likewise, right now, when those folks come to our beaches or go to Kennedy Space Center or even to USSSA for a weekend softball tournament and spend their non-Brevard earned dollars, they are making a contribution to our public school system, and that would continue to be the case. But without the surtax extension, that would no longer be the case. Others would not be making that contribution to our schools like we have been to theirs. So in wrapping up, please know that our commitment as we move forward is complete and 100% transparency, where we will make all of our data-driven assessments available to the community, to the public. They are available, some of them on our website. It includes an itemized list of the investments site by site and by year. So you know exactly the schools that you're here representing today, you can go on our website and know exactly what is being prioritized at that school and in what year that project and work would be done. There will be no new debt accumulated through this project. We will pay as we go. That's why it's spread out over 6 years. And we'll continue to be held accountable to the Independent Citizens Oversight Committee. Their charter will continue if the half-cent sales surtax is extended. And we'll continue with the external audits twice a year as well. And we will report out to our school board and community at least twice a year on the progress that's being made and our fulfillment of the commitments that I have shared with you today. And I would share with you that the outcomes are a benefit to us as a community, to us as a synergistic environment where we all learn and grow and benefit together as a community, where the surtax funds would be a reinvestment in our schools, as well as a reinvestment in our local economy, as we would be supporting people who are working to get the work done, the contractors and subcontractors, as well as it is a wise return on investment. Because the second phase of the surtax will put us in a position to ambitiously maintain preventative maintenance on all of the equipment we've replaced over the last 6 years to ensure we get its full life. But also the practical benefits of replacing old technology with new technology like LED lighting. It's better lighting quality, but it also reduces energy consumption and saves money in utility bills. So as I wrap up, you'll see to the right here the 4 pillars of our strategic plan that uphold our mission to serve students with excellence as a standard. We can only do that when we pursue academic excellence, as well as maintaining an exceptional workforce. And only can we do those things and is through operational sustainability, keeping our buildings and schoolhouses and our workplaces in quality, with quality infrastructure. But none of it is possible without the strong community connection that you as a parent leadership team contribute to making our schools better than we could, even better than we can on our own. Because that extended commitment, that extended contribution and partnership is so critical for us to meet all of the growing needs that our kids have. Through those commitments and those efforts, I'm proud to say that we've maintained being an A-rated school district. We continue to have a state leading graduation rate. We continue to graduate well over 400 seniors every year with an AA degree from Eastern Florida State College. To put that in context, a school district south of us that also starts with a B, they have 3 times as many students and graduated 150 fewer with an AA degree than we have. We also graduate historically 40% of our seniors with an industry certification credential. What that means is kids who may be workforce bound after high school versus college, we have several of those. We send them out into the workforce with an industry credential that gives them a pass to the front of the hiring line because they've got both training and experience in the workforce place that they have studied and have that credential from. But also we can be proud as Brevardians that we've made comprehensive music and art programs available to our youngest kids through our high schools. And I'll tell you, not every county, not every school system across the state or even across the country can tout that kind of commitment. We're only able to do that more recently because of the surtax support that has reinforced and supplemented our capital demands and needs, so we don't have to take money or dollars away from these types of programs and opportunities for our kids to supplement the capital budget. So in closing, the next slide, I'll bring you back to the ballot language that'll be before you. If you've already received your ballot or if you'll be going to the polling place, you'll see this as the first referendum after all of the amendments on the ballot. And I would ask you 2 things. 1, please take the time to be fully informed and educated on the impacts of this referendum on your public schools. And if you have questions, please reach out to us. I think I provided my cell phone, my email to you in the past. We'll post it again in the chat. You're welcome to reach out to me. I want you as our ambassadors among our parents to be fully informed. And then second, I would ask, tell 10 people. Talk to 10 people about the surtax and ask those 10 to each talk to 10 more. It's been a very difficult communications road because we're not able to connect in person like we have been. We've been distanced for many months, and it has made our job to get this information out to our community even more difficult. So we need you to be our ambassadors more than ever to make sure our community understands the impact of this decision that's before them to keep our schools top rated the way we've come the way to enjoy, but also come to expect for our kids. And I think I've got just a few minutes left for questions. If there are any, I'm happy to try and tackle them.
Well, and I have to say that Nikki has been amazing in the chat box. We have had questions coming up and she's jumped right on them and answered them for us. But Nikki, is there anything that you think the superintendent should be able to answer? And I just want to say that was a fabulous presentation. Well done. Well done.
Thank you, Jenny. I know I was talking at Mr. Toad's Wild Ride speed rate. So, catch my breath, and I'm happy to answer. Nikki, were there any questions you wanted me or follow-up you wanted me to?
Actually, 2 very good questions. The first one surrounding the ICOC and wondering if the same members would be on the ICOC for this next round if it passes.
So the ICOC, the charter continues if it's extended. I believe there are some current vacancies. So people go off periodically, and then the ICOC takes applications from community members. They have to maintain no less than 7 members and up to 11 members. So if you're interested in serving an ICOC, encourage you to reach out to Gary Schifrin. He's the current chairman. He's actually been with the ICOC for the full 6 years, and contact him about an interest to apply. But some will continue, some may go off. You know, they've made a huge commitment, some of them, the charter members of the committee, with meeting every other month for the last 6 years. That's a pretty heavy commitment. And those meetings are typically anywhere from 2 to 4 hours long. So they've made a significant investment in this initiative, but ultimately for our kids and our schools.
And the second one was there any support or is there any support for increasing the surtax to a full cent?
We did not look at that because I believe that by statute, we can only go out for up to a half cent. If it goes higher than that, then I believe it has to be in conjunction with another agency to go any higher than that. So to be on our own, it can only go up to 1/2 cent. And to be honest with you, the revenue that's generated annually from the 1/2 cent is that's pushing the extent of what we can manage in terms of capacity of capital projects. So it actually has worked out very well. I'm often asked, well, when will you not have to come back out to the community for the 1/2 cent sales surtax? So I saw one of the questions was, is it another 6 years? Yes, it's another 6 years. And full transparency, now I anticipate we'll need to go out to our community in 6 years for one more renewal. So a total of 12 years. And you may be wondering, well, why 12 years? Because it's in 12 years that debt payment against our capital budget will go away. And then that debt payment of $38 million will be used to sustain and maintain our capital renewal that the surtax right now is filling for us.
I think, seen them already. They are out there. Have to look where they are. I think that is all the questions in the chat box that we have. And we've been sharing out the links to the webpage, the surtax webpage, and various materials that are on there. This presentation actually lives on that page as well.
You guys are letting me off the hook easy today. I'm not going to let you off the hook that easy, because if you have a hard question, if you have the critical question, Nikki, will you post my cell phone number, my email? Yep. Please reach out to me. If you didn't feel comfortable asking the toughest question on the chat box, I understand, and I am happy to tackle all of the concerns that may be out there. Please don't leave this conversation and not get your most critical questions addressed. So please follow up with me, and I'll be happy to have a conversation or follow up with an email.
A question just came through, Dr. Mullins, that said, what happens if this surtax doesn't go through?
Yeah, great question. I have been asked what is Plan B? Well, I'll be honest with you. Plan B is both bad and ugly. There is no good. We will be put in a position to limit any capital renewal like school buses, technology, to a very drastic extent. And then we'd also be faced with having to take operating dollars, which are those dollars that are spent on people who serve our kids, and the programs and learning experiences and resources that they have, taking dollars away from that and moving it over to the capital budget to to address roofs and sewer systems and electrical systems, because they can't go neglected. We can't not replace a roof and have our classrooms leaking. That has to happen. So it would put us in a situation and confront the fact that we would be taking dollars away from our kids in the classroom. I just saw the chat box. Nikki, I think you gave them the wrong cell phone. I'm going to put a better number there.
I'm sorry. Uh-oh.
And Nikki, did you have a special announcement for
Yeah.
everyone as well?
Thank you, Jenny. So as you can see on the last slide, we have these posters available. And what we've done is we've gotten in touch with our business and community partners throughout Brevard County. We're giving them a heads up that they may have folks coming to their doors to see if they'd be willing to hang these posters in their storefront windows, at their places of worship, office buildings. And that email is going out today for early next week. I know there are a lot of parents and caregivers that are looking to get back into our schools and volunteer. And while we can't do that right now because we're holding firm to our reopening plan per COVID, this might be a great opportunity to help out, to help us educate the community by volunteering to pick up a stack of posters and take them to your local places of business. Like I said, we have over 700 business and community partners, so we're reaching out to them in advance to let them know that they might have someone stop by just to drop off a poster or two. So if that's something that you want to do, I'm going to leave my email in the chat box. Please email me and we'll get you posters either to your local school, or you can pick them up here at the district offices. So we'll be starting that next week. Thanks, Jenny.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. So parents, we need you. This is a community effort for sure. And we all need to get out there and share with our neighbors, our friends, and local businesses. So that's wonderful. And I will follow up, Javon and I will follow up in our email to you with more information, with all this information too. So you'll have it in an email form as well. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for joining us today and remind you about our Relax and Chat coming up on October the 22nd. Remember, that's just going to be an opportunity for you to connect with other parents, with Javon and I, and we want to just listen to you and learn where we can go and what's going on, because in every part of our community, there's something new and exciting going on. We know that. So please plan on joining us and spread the word on that as well. And then I will send this out also to you, but there's a parent tech talk training. Javon, did you want to say something about that?
We just received an email from a group that we work with that offered this training. This slide only advertises the one on, October 8th. But when you go to the website, they actually have one that's will be held in October on a Saturday morning if that time works better for you. We just thought it was kind of timely because you guys love to be kept kind of in the loop in the new social media things to look towards and to prevent your children from getting themselves in trouble with. So again, I know it's really small, but we'll send out the link and more information so you can look and see if this is something you'd be interested in. And then thank you so much for sticking with us. We are a little bit over time, but we knew that it was a heavy jam-packed meeting. We're going to go back to the hour-and-a-half length meeting in November because we realized 2 hours is a lot of time for you to commit to. So thank you. Remember, invite a friend, invite another community member to come on with us. The more the merrier. We'll send out that link again too in our follow-up email. Thank you guys. Have a great Friday.
Thank you. Thanks again, Dr. Mullins. Thank you, Ms. Hensley.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.